Okay, so we've now posted the data that you collected from both classrooms, and this is the data you're going to use to write up your experimental report. So if we go into assessments on views, and down to number 2, which is the experimental assignment, we can find the class data here. There's also some information that's also in the learning guide about the things that you should include in your experimental report. So if we go up to the class data, this should open up in a separate file in Excel. So the first thing to do is enable editing. So this is all of the data from both classrooms. You can sort of see here how we measured different things like leaf number, final plant height, shoot mass and root mass. What we've done is we've excluded those entries where insects were not recovered, so you've got rather fewer of those, but still enough to write up a decent experimental report. Now, a really easy way of calculating mean values, these are averages and standard error, is to create a pivot table. So the first thing to do is select all of the data on the file, and then go to the Insert tab, and on the far left hand corner there's this icon here for Pivot Table. So it will ask you whether you want to just use the table or range, so we've already selected this data, and whether we want the table to be put into a new worksheet, so we can just click OK. So what this does is it creates another worksheet. That's the one with all the data. This is the new one. And you will see the sort of skeleton of a pivot table. Now what you can do is put different categories in the rows and also the columns. So let's say we put silicon treatment in columns, so these plants that just have water, and those which contain water that contain silicon. These are the 2 grass species that you use during the class. Now what you can do is for each of the variables that you've measured, you can place that in this values box here at the bottom right hand side. Now at the moment that tells you the counts of shoot mass. So these are the number of observations that are involved in that particular measurement, which is shoot mass. Now what we can do is do another table like that, and another like that. Now what this one does, we could change this one to say average, so this will give you your mean values, so that becomes the average shoot mass basically for all the combinations that you've got there. If we were to calculate the standard deviation, so this gives you an indication of error, we just change that variable to standard deviation. And you can actually work out your standard error for these variables by basically dividing standard error, so that's B20 divided by the number, divided by the square root of the number of observations. So this is B5. So that. And then you can just copy and paste like that. So those are your mean values, and these are your standard errors. So these are the typical error bars that you'd see on many graphs in scientific papers. And then you can just copy and paste these pivot tables and do different responses that you're interested in. So, let's say we want to look at root mass. Again, just move root mass into that box. It automatically by default will go to the counts, so it's exactly the same as the shoot mass there. But if we want to calculate the averages, then we just change it to average. hopefully that will make it useful and easy for you to get the data you need for your reports.